Welcome to the Insurance Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Reid Holsworth. Joining me today in beautiful Boston, Massachusetts, we're here for ITB, is Curt Stevenson. Curt is the, what is it again? Head of operations for Next.
That's right.
Well, Curt's been in the industry for a very long time. He's done a lot of cool shit, and I'm excited to have you, man. This is awesome, man.
Excited to be here. Thanks, Reid.
Yeah, so let's get into it a little bit. So talk about yourself. Tell us a little about yourself. Where did you grow up? What was family life like? What was family life like? I can't even talk yet. All right, let's go.
All right. So I grew up actually not far from here at all, a little suburb of Boston called Needham, Massachusetts. And family life was great. Really no complaints. I'd say I had a relatively privileged middle-class upbringing. My family was close-knit and steady. My parents were hardworking and consistent, supportive, kind of no nonsense. Yeah. I knew where I stood with them, kind of what was expected, but I knew that I was loved. And, I think that foundation gave me the confidence, to take risks later on in life, both professionally and personally.
So also, did you play sports or anything, or what were you into?
Well, I would say I was an extremely mediocre athlete as a kid. I batted .049 in Little League 1 year, which was my last year of Little League. And I got better in high school. We can maybe talk about that in a bit. But I love playing soccer. I love bike riding.
Like mountain bike, road bike, BMX bike?
At the time, it was like a BMX bike.
Yeah,
actually, my first one was a Schwinn Stingray. With
Dude, I know Stingrays. I used to rebuild those and sell them. No joke. Well, no, I used to restore them. I'm not kidding.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I took them apart. I usually could put them back together.
Yeah.
But, anything outside. I was into we lived in a wooded area, building forts, playing in streams.
Oh, that's awesome.
And funny you mentioned the fixing Stingrays. I used to love to take things apart and try to put them back together. So like my Schwinn Stingray, little electric motors and engines. I even took apart my parents' stereo once.
Really?
That didn't end well.
You didn't put it back together, right?
No, I
stopped
didn't.
working. You're like, I'm going to modify it to make it louder.
Yeah.
Like the bass isn't good enough. I'm going to fix this.
Yeah, I lost a tweeter in there somewhere. But anyway, that was what I did as a kid.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, thanks.
That's awesome. So, I don't know, any difficult situations, anything you had to go through? I mean, it sounds like you're pretty good, stable family life.
I was fortunate. Probably the biggest trauma I dealt with as a little kid, when I was 9 years old, I actually witnessed my dog get hit by a school bus.
Oh, damn.
So, but really, if that's the biggest problem you deal with as a kid, things aren't bad. But, funny story, we were just talking about parents, and my parents were strict, right? Again, awesome people, gave me a great work ethic, but a story about how strict they were, and this could be on the traumatic side. So I think it was 8th grade. I had saved up my own money to buy a mini bike.
Oh, yeah.
And, it was this old trail dirt bike. It was a Honda CT70.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know exactly. Yeah, totally.
In 8th grade.
That's badass.
It was fun. So I bought it from this kid, and I used to ride that thing everywhere. And I think my parents definitely felt I was not performing to my potential in school. And at one point, we're starting a semester, and my school had this weird grade point average system. It was an 11-point scale. And they were like, all right, if you don't get an 8.0 this semester, we're giving away the mini bike.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, okay, 8.0. It was like a B average or something. Yeah. It was not an unattainable goal.
So you weren't doing very good.
It wasn't that great.
Yeah,
wasn't that great. And so anyway, the semester...
No more mini biking.
No, well, that's where I'm going with this. You foreshadowed. But yeah, so I get to the end of the semester. I got a 7.8. I was like, that's pretty close to 8. But sure enough, I get home from school one day, and I see my mini bike being loaded into this pickup truck. It was the husband of a coworker of my dad. And I was devastated. And as they're pulling out of the driveway with my mini bike all strapped in the back of the truck bed, I'm like, oh, Dad, how much did you get for it? And he's like, no, the deal was we were going to give it away. And I was like, so I learned early on, I'm like, okay, when my dad says something, he means it. And they held me to that. But it was a good lesson in accountability.
Do you have a mini bike now?
I do not. No.
Maybe you need one.
I did.
Have you had one since?
Yes. In my adult years, I've had a couple quads and really like that a lot. But no more mini bike.
How about high school, man? What's high school like?
High school, yeah. I guess you could say I think I was a relatively well-rounded nerd is probably a good way to put it. Kind of like a jack of many trades, master of none, which, by the way, that's probably still true today. I did play 3 sports in high school, 2 varsity, 1 soccer. I never made it beyond the JV level. And I did some plays and musicals.
Oh, okay.
Sang in an all-male a cappella group.
Oh, that's cool.
So, I enjoyed my high school experience.
What's favorite band in high school?
Ooh, favorite band.
What type of music?
Yeah. So I guess if I, not one, but I love U2 and the Police. That was kind of the era. And then, I don't know, I probably transitioned in high school, early college to what we were then calling like alternative, like Pearl Jam, Nirvana,
totally.
Smashing Pumpkins. And now I guess you just look, kids probably call that classic rock now.
But I guess you're right.
Yeah,
Actually.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff I like. And still, honestly, I listen to some of that still today.
Nice.
Big Eddie Vedder fan. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about cars? First car.
First car. All right, so it was the color. I'm going to start with the color. So it was called, the factory color was called metallic green, but my friends and my girlfriend all called it puke green, which was really descriptive. So it was a Saab 900 EMS.
Wow.
Which, like, in hindsight, was one of the ugliest cars ever manufactured. But it was a 5-speed. I learned to drive my stick, and it was peppy, and I love that car, as ugly as it was.
Have you owned a Saab since that Saab?
I have. Well, actually, one of my second car was also a used Saab, but it's been a long time now. Yeah.
Those Saabs are done now. They're gone. They've been gone for a long time.
I think so. I think like Ford ended up buying them or something.
Right.
And they were manufactured here. They were super reliable. My parents were like Saab and Volvo people, so I inherited one of those. Yeah.
Funny, growing up, this dude lived down the street from me, my buddy's stepdad, and he was a mechanic, and that's all he worked on was Saabs. And he built race Saabs. And he had these like sick, like 2-door, I forget what they were. They're like these 2-door Saabs, old ones. They were so cool, man. They were fast as hell, and he's always wrenching on those. Yeah. So it's cool. As a little kid, I'd go over there and help him wrench on stuff and whatnot. But it's funny. Awesome. Saabs are like a little subculture. In their own way.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you don't see many around anymore.
Yeah, no, at all. All right. So, what's your first job?
First job. So, kind of like as a pre-professional.
Yes.
So as a kid
in high school, first actual job.
Great. So I did maintenance at a local swim and tennis club. And that was everything from like mowing lawns and doing landscaping to cleaning the pool filters and even some light construction. Like I learned a ton doing that job. It was fun. But those summers, early high school, that's where I started my first real business. So I do that day job from like 7 to 3. And then I would spend afternoons mowing lawns and landscaping. And I thought I was all big time business. I was doing like mailbox marketing, putting flyers in, getting customers. I had like my Mac SE. I'd print up invoices and deliver them after I mowed. So I was borrowing my parents' lawnmower at first, and I invested my first profits into I actually bought a couple used lawnmowers.
Oh, that's cool.
And most of them were like walking distance, so the neighbors probably laugh at me. I'm like walking around the neighborhood.
Oh yeah, you're like the kid with all the things.
Yeah. The long distance ones, I'd use my mom's Volvo station wagon and like put the mower in the back and drive around to the customers I couldn't walk to. And I caddied too. We were not too far from kind of a high-end golf course.
Oh, nice.
And it was pretty cool. It was like between caddying and my little landscaping business, I was making more doing that than the day job.
Oh yeah, totally.
So it was a good way to sock away some cash as a kid.
Do you still mow your own grass?
I do.
You do? Nice.
I do. Well, here in Boston, we don't have a lawn. We're in a I have a place on Cape Cod, and my wife has been trying to get me for years to hire a lawn. I'm like, I miss that. Like, I actually get pleasure out of it. So yes, I do. I've heard all the financial planners. You should pay someone to mow your lawn. Your time's more valuable than that. But I actually get pleasure out of it.
I get it, man.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
So what'd you do after high school?
So I went to college. I went to a small liberal arts college in Maine called Colby College, which like people know of it around New England, but outside of New England, no one's ever heard of it. But yeah, I majored in economics.
Oh wow! Okay, no kidding.
Yeah.
So what'd you do after school? So you went major in economics.
Yeah.
You graduate there,
Graduated there. Started like a week after graduation at a big 8 consulting firm.
Oh, wow, okay.
The one that later got rebranded as Accenture.
Yes.
Anderson Consulting at the time.
Oh, wow. So were you part of that whole Enron scandal?
No. So they thankfully no. They were even at that time 2 separate busises. Like they had divided the partnership before I got there. But yeah, it was Anderson Consulting.
Isn't it funny? People forget that. Accenture was Anderson.
Yeah.
That whole that was so gnarly. Like that was so gnarly.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. And actually, but they rebranded actually before the Enron scandal. I think that happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I could be misremembering.
Yeah.
But anyway, but Accenture, it was a great experience. Like, you get such great training from a big company. Like they taught me how to code. Taught me how to deal with clients and manage people. And so I really give that experience, and the people I work for there, like a lot of credit for skills that I use later as an entrepreneur and leader.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great first job. I bet the training was amazing.
Really good. Yeah.
So then what'd you do from there? So you're there, you did that. What were you doing there?
So it was technically called the systems integration practice. A good example. So my first client was actually a life insurance company. This was kind of got into insurance early, not by design, but it just happened. And we custom built a client accounting and statistical system. Okay. So it was like where they did all their reporting and actuarial stuff and all that. So that's the kind of stuff I did, basically custom development.
Wow. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So you did that, and then what?
So I got a little, I liked the experience there, but I sort of, the capitalist gene kind of came back, and I was like, okay, so they're billing me out at probably at the time, $200 an hour. I'm seeing a fraction of that, and ended up starting my own consulting company. The theory was, okay, I can charge less, I can take home more. And so the company was called Back Bay Technologies, and it was basically like, I kind of modeled it after, it was like a mini Accenture, like very. So
hold on.
Yeah.
So you're out fresh out of college. You know, your landscaping business.
This was like 5 years later.
Okay, but you're still 5 years later. You're a kid. You're a child.
I was a kid. Yeah.
You're like I can do what these guys do. Yeah. And so I'm gonna go start this business.
Yeah, pretty
That's
much.
awesome.
Well, it was initially based around a really specific opportunity.
Okay. Okay. So you fell into something.
It was sort of like,
and they're like, "Hey, dude, we'll hire you."
Looking for contractors here,
gotcha.
So I kind of jumped on it, and then ended up bringing in somebody else, and just putting a little margin on top of it, and then took on a partner, So we called it Back Bay Technologies. We mainly started specializing in a technology called J2EE, which you probably remember.
I don't know.
Okay, all right.
I don't know what this is.
All right, it's Java 2 Enterprise Edition.
Oh, okay.
It was it was the Java equivalent of I don't know, whatever Microsoft had at the time. But it was basically it was an evolution beyond. We were using Power Builder to build things at that time, and it was kind of a more industry, just a standard open source technology. But anyway, so we took on all kinds of clients, but the biggest and most lucrative ones ended up being insurance companies. So one was John Hancock, and a custom thing we helped them build was this customer service workbench, which of course no one would ever do now. You'd just go, lease Zendesk or Salesforce or something like that. Yeah. But so it had all the customer workflows. It could also look up policies and household accounts and stuff. So
oh wow.
So it was cool. And then another project we did for Hancock was helping them build their first term life insurance online app, which again at that time was like, whoa, that's crazy. Yeah, now it's like that's everybody has that. But somewhere in there, I got all these insurance certifications, my FLMI and my CPCU.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and so then. My partner and I eventually sold BBT, and I took a little time off, started my second landscaping business. Now I'm in my mid-30s now. And
really? For real? You started another landscaping business? No shit.
Yeah. So on paper, when we sold BBT, on paper, financially things look really good. Yeah. It didn't really materialize. That's a story for another day. We got compensated in a lot of stock that ended up really not being worth anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, at some point I got pulled back into work to a company that one of my clients had started called Agencyport.
Oh wow!
Which you may have heard of. We can talk a little bit more about that. But that's sort of at that point I was like, okay, I want to do all these other things, but my market values in insurance, and that's kind of when I went in all in on P&C.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So Agencyport. So you want to start Agencyport.
Yeah, I didn't start it, just to be clear.
Yeah.
It was already in existence, but they brought me in to sort of run the professional services group and, move me up to the management team at some point.
How big was Agencyport at that time? Like how many employees roughly?
The time I joined, it was probably 15. We were doing most of the technical work, so they had like good business people and analysts, and we were doing a lot of that J2E technology.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we were providing that, but in the time I later came on an employee, we grew to 300 at one point.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Yeah.
But at that point, I don't know, 20ish.
Yeah, totally. So really early on.
Yeah.
So tell the listeners, what is Agencyport? I know Agencyport.
Yeah.
What does that business do?
Yeah. So Agencyport was basically the mission. So the two co-founders, Eric Harnden and Steve Hauk, were really set out to kind of reduce friction between agents and carriers. Mm-hmm. So make that experience, and again, I'm dating myself here, but when they started this, there was still a lot of paper flying around, faxes and stuff like that. And so
this was back in the day, the race for the better portal was where the money was. Because I was an agent during that time, and it's like, as these carriers started to come out with these portals, like the better ones were the ones that were getting most of the business. I mean, Icon still does.
Right.
Right.
So I know you had Casey Kempton on recently, and she was a business sponsor of that, and that really transformed Hartford's small commercial and their relationships with agents. So it was that was pretty awesome. So the main product, the flagship product, was that agency portal, which we would implement at carriers, and they would, be branded. They would brand it like Harvard branded it, New Icon at the time. But carriers could call it whatever they wanted, and it really just helped with kind of the rate quote buying flow. We also had a product called Agency Connect, which did upload from Applied and Vertafore systems.
Oh, okay.
We had a book roll tool, like PDF reader back before you could. Get ChatGPT to do that for you. It was a really cool experience.
Is that where some of that, what was that, Turnstile?
Turnstile. Yeah, that was the PDF. It was like, it would scrape the data off a PDF and then upload it into a carrier portal.
Tell people about, because this is a long time ago. People don't know, this stuff has existed for a long time, and now people are still talking about solving this problem.
Right, I know. SEMSI, it's still a thing, right? Yeah.
That was all you guys. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I don't take credit. I was part of the team, but at the time that was some pretty revolutionary stuff. And, and we were definitely the market leader in that agent portal space.
Yeah. So how long were you at Agencyport?
Oh, let's see. 10 or 11 years.
Oh, wow.
Total. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then, Agencyport got acquired.
Yes.
By a large company.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm happy to. I think I could talk about
of
it.
Course.
It's public information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the two co-founders, we went through a number of different ownerships. Steve and Eric were brilliant. They bought and sold this thing like 3 times, and are on both sides of the trade. They eventually stepped away from the business. We were owned by a private equity firm. And the private equity firm asked me when they stepped away to be CEO, and sort of they're like, okay, now we want you to sell this thing. So they basically were like, they had a 5-year time horizon, and Steve and Eric stepped away in like year 3.5, and they're like, you got to help us sell this thing. So we went to market. We talked to pretty much everyone you can name in the policy admin space. We talked to all of them. We did a roadshow. Ended up getting acquired by Duck Creek.
At the time, was Doug still running Duck Creek, or was it?
No, Mike Chakowski.
Chakowski was,
and Mike was a great leader. Yeah. I learned a lot from Mike, and he's, I believe he's still running it today. He was great to work with, but it was interesting. So at that time, so Duck Creek buys Agencyport. We were, I think, like 140 people at the time. And
you worked with Mike and Alan there too.
Yes, they were part of my leadership team.
Yep.
I honestly can't rember if they left right before or right after the Duck Creek.
I think right after.
Okay.
Yeah, so probably one of them was one of the other. Who knows?
So we had a fun team. We had a great time there. So Duck Creek, so they acquire us, right? I'm CEO of this 140 person company, and Chakowski he was good at it. He was a longtime CEO, or not long. He'd been there a while, and a really good leader. And they're like, okay, there are only 2 CEOs. So what are we going to do with this Curt guy? They wanted to keep me around to keep they really like the Agencyport culture and the product. Yeah. And they're like, okay, well, they wanted to keep me around to do that. So what are we going to do with this guy? So they give me this title, Chief Digital Officer.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
All right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
My kids are like, oh, that sounds cool. What is that? And at the time I was like, hey, I'll take that title. But so what that meant is nothing like the title says. And so we were talking before we started the interview about Larry Wilson.
Yeah.
So Larry Wilson had started this thing called Dovetail. Yep. Which was really a small commercial insurance exchange. And so what I was doing as chief digital officer, I was running this fairly complicated joint venture between Duck Creek and Marsh. Oh. And it was, so Marsh had bought Dovetail and then had Duck Creek come in. They were platforming it on Duck Creek. But it was sort of like everything we had been working for so many years, although it wasn't completely open. But on this platform, it's like we had 6 or 8 carriers, pretty much every small commercial line of business, some admitted, some E&S, and then we had like 3,000 agents on the other side, and it was all living in this Duck Creek platform. So it was fully integrated, stuff flowing back and forth, and these agents would service, sell and service policies through the system. So that was pretty fun.
That's pretty cool. What happened to it?
So, I don't really know. I was worried you were going to ask me that. And they did end up shutting it down. And I think so. It became part of another Marsh acquisition called Victor.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not really sure exactly where. Most of the players who were there when I was involved.
Victor's still going.
Victor's still there. Yeah. No, I think they're doing really well.
Oh, yeah, they are.
But Dovetail as a brand seems to have been folded into something else that.
It's interesting.
I know.
All these small commercial and commercial exchanges. There's been a lot of attempts, and none of them have been successful yet.
No, that one had hope. I think it was more. I think the E&S part was kind of a struggle. Like admitted lines are easy to get going on a policy admin system, but to do E&S in a way that it's like consistent, so an agent can come in and do a comparative quote on E&S.
Right.
It's different, and it was still there were some carriers out there that were doing great things. Ryan Specialty at the time.
Yep. They still are.
They have that thing, the connector. So that it was all related, but I think it got tough, like many times, over decades of people trying to do this. It's like you got to get everybody on the same page. And Accord at the time didn't support E&S, so So
every time because I've had other people on this podcast, just people I know for many, many years, and they've talked about all these different exchanges that started, and it was always that. It's always like 1 or 2 parties, the big players, didn't want to play. And that's why it didn't work.
I think that's true, right? You're kind of, you'd have to subject yourself to competition and complete transparency. And, so you can see why the dynamics, I guess, were tricky.
Yeah. Wow. So that's a ride. So Agencyport, Dovetail, get acquired. You sell the business, you sell it to Duck Creek. What's that like? Tell people, what was that experience like? You've never done that before. I mean, I've talked a lot about that on this show, but what was that like?
The sale process itself?
Yeah, the whole thing, dealing with this team and integration and all of that.
It was pretty wild. First of all, everybody had stepped up when Steve and Eric stepped away. So, you mentioned Mike and Alan.
Yep.
I had a guy who had sort of backfilled me on the services side, great CFO, great legal guy. And so the private equity firm that owned us at the time brought in an investment bank and helped us refine the story, really solidify the book. I mean, we were good, we were owned by a private equity firm, so everything was on the up and up. But it was like, okay, how do we position this? Come up with 5-year projections, which frankly we would always think 2-3 years ahead, but not 5. Totally. So they helped us get sort of a packet ready. Went through their process to sort of shop it around and see who was interested. And so we would we'd go on these road shows. Most of them we did. The investment banker was down in Manhattan. So we'd fly down there for 3 days at a time and do a morning and an afternoon, morning, afternoon. It's really tiring sitting up, in front of really powerful people pitching the business. But great experience. You really start to understand strategy and like why certain things are valuable to certain acquirers and not to others, and really trying to focus on that fit. So, I'm thankful. I was lucky to go through that experience, but it was hard.
Yeah, and we were talking a little about this before we started, and I actually, when we sold Tech Canary, we had a lot of serious, heavy conversations with who you're talking about. And I got to know those guys. We got real close because I really liked the culture there. Yeah. I liked Chakowski. Yep. At the time, I even liked the PE guys, Jason, all those guys. I mean, it was a good culture. They've done some good things. They've been around for a long time. And you may not know this, but Doug Roller was on my board for a lot of years at Tech Canary. Right. And so, like, he's been out of that for a long time. He was out, like, after the whole Accenture thing and all of that. But just a good human, and so I really liked Duck Creek. I could see that being a good home. Yeah, for a lot of people.
They were great, and Jason was awesome. So basically they Apex ended up simultaneous. Like, it was a simultaneous close. Them acquiring Duck Creek from Accenture. Yep. Which, like, I had nothing to do with that, but here I am back at Accenture. Simultaneous with them acquiring us. So it was all one deal.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, no kidding.
And so the Apex guys
good
were
for them. That is super smart. I didn't know that.
It was a good trade. Yeah. And we had an awesome board. So Jason, a couple other guys from that PE firm, Larry Wilson, who we were talking about, Bill Peroni, who was running Accord at the time. We had some great people to learn from.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So then Duck Creek. Then what?
All right. So from Duck Creek, one thing I'm perfectly willing to admit, I'm kind of a small company guy. Like, I loved leading a couple hundred people. Like, being in a company with 1,300 people wasn't really my cup of tea. And I admire it. But it was like, okay, this isn't really for me. So I actually got an opportunity to go back and do something with Steve and Eric. Like, we stayed close. Cool, and, so they were launching, this was, again, their idea. I just came in to, like, execute it. I'm giving myself too much credit. They got it all set up, and I came in and ran it. But it was called Oyster Insurance. Okay. I'll go into a little detail here. So Steve and Eric, when they stepped away from Agencyport, they had invested years ago in this little agency called Ep90, which was doing pay-as-you-go workers comp, real nice little niche. And, they were making great money, dealing with big carriers who I'm comfortable naming because it's in the past now. But so, like, Hartford, Travelers, AmTrust, Guard, and selling a ton of workers comp to small businesses through their payroll systems. None of those guys at the time that I went there, which was 2017 or 18, were binding online yet. And Steve and Eric were like, we're going to make our own bind online workers' comp carrier. And so that was what Oyster was. Okay. And so we launched this product on Brightcore. We worked with Lancer as a fronting company. I guess you're not supposed to say fronting company, but whatever that role is. And it was awesome. So we were binding, we got it up and running. We were binding online, instant bind within obviously a very tight appetite, but in New York, New Jersey, and California, which were the three biggest AP states. And I helped get that off the ground, ran that for a couple years. And then we actually shut it down for a good reason, though. So what happened is we AP Indigo. I mean, they were like sister companies. Let's just call it that. Yeah. We were literally co-located. But so most of the online bind in California, New York, New Jersey, the three biggest states, that was like almost 50% of our book, were getting bound online through Oyster. And it was enough, like, that got taken away from the big carriers that they were like, oh, okay, we'll figure out bind online. So it was really leverage, which got the Hartford to bind online, AmTrust to bind online. And so as soon as they started doing that, the reality is, if you're running an MGA, you're making like 10%. And if you're a big agent with a Hartford, you're making 20 plus with your contingent commissions and stuff. Yep. So it became more profitable for us to write, for AP Indigo to write on the big carriers.
Oh, that makes sense.
Now they could bind online. And that was making our partners had been.
It's way less risk and all of it. It's a better cleaner business. Yeah. Totally.
So
that's an interesting story. Yeah.
Totally. So I think the legal entity still exists, but we stopped writing new business on it. We rolled it all over to one of the big guys.
Oh, wow.
And and then so from there, basically, they had been, Eric was a man of wearing many hats, and I think he had been running operations at AP Indigo, and just, he was also running tech, engineering, product. And so that he asked me to take over operations. So after being like a software guy, pretty much my whole career, I ended up running a sales and service team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was fun. Like I was finally learning again. Like, honestly, I mean, I shouldn't say I wasn't learning through the Duck Creek experience, but it was like kind of stuff I had done before. And yeah, here I was, doing something new.
That's awesome.
Late in my career. Yeah.
So then how long did you do that?
Well, that sort of is going to take us up to the current. But so about 4 years ago, in early 2021, Next Insurance ended up buying AP Indigo. And so I kind of went with that deal. They had similar, like the previous acquisition I was talking about, there was this awesome woman, Christine Pfeiffer, who was running operations. So it was kind of like, all right, we don't really need two heads of operations. So I ended up working for her, and at the time, still managing what was the AP Indigo business. It's now been sort of rebranded within Next as Next Agency. But yeah, we had an awesome sales and service team out of Rochester, New York. And so I was running that all through COVID. I was like driving out to Rochester every 3 weeks.
Oh, no kidding.
So that's
pretty cool.
What I was doing, yeah.
Next has totally exploded. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild. That's a wild story.
Yeah, Next is great. So I know you had Jack Ramsey on, who's the head of our agency channel. But yeah, so Next, for your listeners who don't know, just like want me to give 30 seconds?
Please. Yeah, totally.
So it was originally a digital first, direct to consumer, small commercial carrier. And when I say small commercial, customers meaning small commercial. We're actually over $1 billion in premium right now.
Wow.
So it was initially all direct. The reason they acquired AP Indigo was to bring in that whole partnership business and the payroll ecosystem. And around that same time, they were launching the agency channel too. That Jack.
Yeah, because it was all direct first.
Yeah. And so now we do almost a third through partners, a third through agents, and a third direct.
Yeah.
Give or take. My role there, super ironic. Like I said, like after being in tech and software, I'm leading the most people-intensive part of the business. So I oversee our customer service team. So it's about 100 licensed insurance advisors.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys did like a big deal with like Amazon back when, right? And that was like, I remember that. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome and so big and blah, blah, blah. But like those kind of deals, it seems awesome and huge on the outside, but like the business you get from that kind of stuff, and I'm not asking you to comment.
Yeah.
I just know it's never like what it seems.
It's, without revealing any secrets, you're right on, Reid.
Yeah.
Like it was, it's exciting. It's still a fair, there's some decent flow coming out of it.
Yeah.
The insurance we provide through that affiliate channel, we call it, is like product liability insurance.
Okay, yeah.
So it's not a huge line for us,
but
it's nice to have. It's a great logo to have as a partner, that kind of thing.
That's awesome.
But the reality is, actually, I'm not sure all these have been announced, but the reality is we get a lot more flow through a couple big personal lines carriers that are their agencies are flowing through small commercial through us.
Oh, no kidding.
And we kind of made it really easy for them to be embedded and buy our stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, it's pretty cool.
So the embedded route is really doing well.
Yeah. So the embedded, this goes back to the AP Indigo days, where we would embed like in a payroll provider, let's say Gusto, because this is public. But so if you're a small business owner and you're setting up your payroll in the Gusto app, you get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm a electrician in Illinois with 5 employees, and right in the app we can say, you're required by the state of Illinois to have workers' comp insurance. And we happen to have everything we need to quote your workers' comp because we have your payroll and we know what class code all your employees are in.
Totally.
We can give them a quote right in the app, and it's like, do you want to buy it? And they can click yes. And that's what we were binding online. And so that's still a big part of Next today.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. I want to go back to something on the whole Agencyport thing. It's the thing I think about because I've known Mike and Alan and all of that, and like what they started, Ask Kodiak and all of that, and like what you're talking about now is embedding insurance and things. Do you think the portals are always going to be a thing, or do you think that agencies are going to start to use systems that are directly connecting into the carriers more and more and more, or like what you're doing, a more embedded experiences? And
I think. I mean, I still think there's a use for portals, and I know they're still in play today. But yeah, over time, I see it evolving more towards that embedded experience. Like you can do so much with APIs now.
Yeah,
and part of the excitement about that Gusto example is like you're making it so easy.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't even have to
100%.
link to another website. It's literally in the flow of what they're doing anyway. It's like it takes so much friction out of that.
And for them, I mean, for the consumer, it's all right there too.
Yeah,
that's how I look at it. Like, that's my payroll, my insurance, it's all right there.
Yeah.
You know, it's like everything's in one spot.
Yep.
I think that's the truth. I think more and more of these carriers are looking for a competitive edge via technology, and they're opening up these APIs to be able to allow these types of things. Yeah. You guys are super innovative. Guy's a super smart dude. Yeah. He's a funny dude, man. I like hanging out with that guy. Yep. That guy, it's kind of funny. But yeah, no, I think it's really smart what you guys are doing, and you've grown like crazy, $1 billion in premium in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, again, I'm one of many people on that team. Even more so than what I was saying with Steve and Eric. You know, I'm there's somebody between me and Guy. Let's just say that.
Yeah. All right. So if you could fix something, what would you fix in insurance?
That's a tough one. I mean, as you know, there's still a lot of problems. Like it's come a long way, but there's still some dysfunction in the industry. I think though, if I could fix one problem, it would probably be the disconnect between policyholders and the value that they actually receive. I think so much of the industry still feels kind of like transactional and reactive, and that erodes trust.
Okay.
I think the truth is like it should be a really empowering industry. Like if you think about it, we're providing protection and peace of mind and enabling people to take risks, whether it's in their personal life, with their home and cars, or their business, whether their workers' comp or general liability. And I feel like we as an industry, we rarely tell that story well.
Yeah, it's true.
And we definitely don't deliver it in a way that messaging is simple and transparent.
Yeah, it's like giving the prospect, customer, whatever it may be, like a hug. In a way, like it's kind of like, hey, it's all good. This is why we do this thing.
We're here to help you.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about you got to buy this thing.
Yeah, like you're going to charge you money, and you got to hope you never have a claim. Yeah,
it's so expensive. Right. I hate this stuff. Yeah. But no, you're right. It's like educating them on what this really does and giving them a peace of mind. And so it's really educating the consumers around this. There's so much bad press around insurance, especially now.
Oh, well, it's killer. I mean, you know, California property rates after these fires. Like, I honestly, I'm not sure what the solution is to that. Like, it's going to be messy.
Well, it's crazy too. Like, I know some people that were affected by that and whatever, and friends of friends and all that. And it's interesting because when you hear people talk, they say, the first thing they say is like, oh, I'm just going to get screwed by the insurance. I know I'm going to get screwed.
Right.
Like, they're just like, I'm like, they're not really in the business to screw you. Like, it doesn't really work like that.
Right.
You know, but like, that's everybody's, that's how they think. That's how they feel about it. It's just like, but instead of like, I'm so glad I have insurance.
Right. We've got not to prop up next too much. I know that's not why we're here, but we had an all hands meeting yesterday, and Guy actually played a TikTok from one of our customers, and it was just about, it was like that awesome experience. Like his storefront had been vandalized, like someone threw a brick through the window, and it was all about how he filed his claim online. This happened on a Friday. And by Monday, they boarded it up quickly. And by Monday morning, he had his money, it had been zipped to his bank account, and he's like paying. There's video of him, like the people coming in and replacing the glass.
That's like, amazing.
That's what insurance is all about, right?
Yeah.
It's like protecting small businesses.
To your point,
people.
Yeah. How do you like promote that? And that's really cool because it's life changing. Like stuff happens, crazy stuff happens, and it's like you don't hear enough of those good stories out there. I like that. This is really good.
Yeah,
so true. It's just like it's always the negative stuff. Like I said, like, but it's true. There's a lot of good.
Yeah.
A lot of good.
Really a lot of good.
Yeah. Back in the day, I used to do insurance claims, like construction-wise.
Yeah.
And man, you'd have something that happened to somebody's house and it's really unfortunate. But a lot of these people, they get their entire house rebuilt, all new stuff, and they're ecstatic about it, like
Yep.
so happy.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, it's like the whole thing was terrible. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
it's just like they came out of it like
better off than
better
when they went
off.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. As
That
an
is the
industry,
kind of
we
story.
should.
Yeah,
we
we need
should
to,
be
like,
promoting that type of stuff as an industry.
Yeah.
It's just so much negativity
Yep.
around it. No, that's really cool, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Life mission.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. Any advice you have for entrepreneurs coming in the insurance industry or technology space?
Yeah, yes, definitely. So I guess I'd probably put this into 3 buckets. So one would be you really have to understand the regulatory landscape.
Yeah.
So you know this, but insurance is probably one of the most heavily regulated industries there is. And especially in the States, it's like all 50 states have slightly different rules and regulations about what you need to file and how you need to handle certain things. Internationally, it's pretty crazy too. So I think that's important, but I also feel you should never lead like a new business or an idea with compliance, because I think if you allow compliance and regulatory stuff to be a constraint, you're never going to get out of the gate. Like there's just too much there. But I think you need to be aware enough of it to like know that as you start to scale and want to start selling policies in New Jersey,
right.
and we've got to get some filings. So like you need to kind of know what's coming and be ready to deal as you scale.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
The other one, okay, so I think you really need to respect distribution channels. So
this is good.
Yeah, so 20 years ago, I had an opportunity to buy a personalized agency. My father-in-law wasn't in great health, and he was none of his kids wanted to buy it. So he asked me, and I was like, no way. I'm like, insurance agents, they're going to be like what just happened to travel agents,
right?
Like this is like,
this
is right when we were starting to book everything on Expedia, and I was like, that's a stupid industry. And boy, was I wrong. Here I am, like 2 decades later, that's exactly what I'm doing, right? But really, distribution is everything in insurance, and I think between agents, brokers, MGAs, carriers, they all play vital roles, and I think you really need to understand that and articulate whatever your solution is. Like, how is it going to sort of enhance that value proposition and all those channels rather than displace them? So I think that's important.
That's so true. It's true. People don't look at it that way. I
yeah,
like that.
Right. Yeah, it's sort of like, okay, this is the agency killer. It's like, no, this should be the agency enhancer, right? And even though we do, like I said earlier, we do a third of our business direct, but we also we see the value in agents and partners.
Big time. Well, yeah. I've talked about this before, but I've seen so many insurtech startups, carriers starting up, in that world, going direct first. Everything's all direct. And eventually they're like, maybe we should tap into this IA channel. Yeah. And it's like, why not?
Right. Right.
I mean, I don't know. I've said this before. I feel like everyone should, even the big captives. Why? If I'm State Farm, why would you not tap into the IAs? I mean, Geico just did it.
Right.
They're doing it and they're crushing it. I mean, it's personalized stuff, but I mean, still, why would you not? If I'm running that business, I'd be like, oh wait, there's all this other distribution over here.
Right.
Does that cannibalize my book? I don't know. I think they think it does, but I haven't really figured out why it would,
In almost all those situations, there's some complementary value prop. Like maybe there's a couple classes of business that are out of appetite or something like that. And I feel like, there's more opportunity to work together. And the third thing, I think you need to stay close to industry talent. So I think there are a ton of good technologists and ideas out there. But you need, if you really want to make a difference in insurance, you have to have some insurance industry expertise, just to avoid those missteps and speed up your credibility. I think if you're looking for investment or customers, whatever it is, and you don't have to necessarily go hire these big guns from insurance, but have an advisory board.
Yeah, that's true.
With some veterans. But like I said, with the compliance thing, you don't want all old school insurance veterans because you'll never get anything done. So it's this mix of sort of this agile tech mindset and some insurance expertise.
That's really good. That's really good advice.
Thanks.
All right. What technology do you see having the greatest impact in insurance within the next couple of years? Not AI.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
No. I listened to enough of your episodes to know that just about everybody's been saying AI for the last 2 years. So I'm going to come to something else, but I do have to comment on AI. So at Next, we're using it every day to do more with less. For example, so we're using AI right now is handling literally thousands of contacts a day that don't come through to my team, which is awesome. So for little things, first of all, our customers could do everything they want on the website. Like they can do a cert, they can change language on a cert, they can do endorsements, but there's still like a subset of the population, both small business consumers and agents that want to talk to a person.
Yeah, totally.
So we serve through chat, email, and phone, and so when someone comes in and like wants a cert, that's probably the best example. I want a cert and I need an additional insured. Like we do all that through Gen AI right now.
Oh, that's badass.
That's
now huge time suck too.
Huge time suck. So that frees up my agents to like focus on higher value stuff. Like, okay, I need some real advice here on like what kind of coverage should I have for this job? Can you help me look at this contract and figure out what endorsements I need and things like that. So it's saving us 7 figures a month in people cost right now. Yeah.
Holy
so
moly.
It is really adding value. But I figured you'd give me a hard time if I gave you AI as my answer. So I'm going to go like a completely different direction. A place that I'm actually excited about now, and my past has dabbled in this, but is innovation in the core system space. So obviously that's not getting as much attention globally as AI, but I'm an advisor to a company called Combined Ratio Solutions. I know you had Luke on.
I didn't realize that. Okay,
so I don't know when Luke was on, about a year ago.
Oh yeah, he's building this thing for, I know, okay.
So he foreshadowed this then, right? Like he was talking about an open source policy admin system, and they now have it out there. They had a launch party at Insurtech Hartford a few weeks ago.
That's awesome.
I got to go down. It was a good party. We wish you had been there. But yeah, basically it's an alternative to like the Guidewires and other big players in the world. And you know this, but like those systems can cost tens of millions of dollars to implement. They can take many years.
In some cases,
Yeah. So this idea about like open source infrastructure for core systems, I think it has a potential. Like, first of all, there's, you got to get some good early adopters and case studies, but it has the potential to really transform the industry in terms of like, I think the great use case is like, let's say you're trying to get a new E&S line up and running. You're not going to go spend $20 million to get like Majesco in there.
Yeah.
When you can kind of spin this thing up and get a little line going. I didn't mean to bash Majesco.
Totally. Yeah. We get you. Yeah.
But anyway, I think that could really enable carriers to just think differently about core technology.
Yeah, and I think too, like those core systems built in the right way, the data model is the same for the agency systems.
Yeah.
So you could argue that you could start, that open source, you get adoption there, you get adoption on the other side. Now people are working in one world.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could probably go on a tangent about why hasn't Accord solved that problem for us yet. But
we could totally go on a tangent about that.
Do that later.
Probably not on camera.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. Yeah. But last time I talked to Lou, I got to catch up with him. He was like, I'm going to give it away for free.
He is.
Is he still giving it away for free?
Yeah. So that's what this launch party, like they have this really cool branding. It's like Rebel. They have, I should have worn my
that's cool.
My Combined Ratio t-shirt. But so they're giving it away for free. And, they obviously and they're not making any secrets about this. They want to get the implementation work.
Yeah.
I mean, they're primarily a services company, but it's a really cool product. They're live. I don't think I can say where they're live with it, but they do have a couple of customers using it, and they're looking for that one. You need those early big successes.
Yeah.
As soon as Company A Company B sees that Company A has done it and they've rolled this dice and they're actually doing something, not on one of the big players, like that's going to be huge.
Wow. Yeah. It's smart too. If they start going after all that E&S stuff, you're going to get a lot of flow early on.
Absolutely.
And then the people will start stacking on standard stuff.
Yeah.
100%. Wow. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool.
That's really cool.
And as you know, they're fun guys to work with.
Those
they've
guys
got a great
awesome.
team.
Those guys are so cool, man.
Yeah.
It's good for them. And I could see it like, why wouldn't you want to work with those guys?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? They're such good dudes and they know their shit. Luke's no joke, man.
Yeah, no, he's not. Yeah, so he was at Hartford on NBV when we were building that out at Agencyport. And ended up coming to work for us at Agencyport.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So he and I have we've got a long history.
Oh, that's funny.
And Mike's an awesome guy too.
100%. Yeah. Good dudes, man. I love hanging out with those guys.
Yeah, they're fun.
All right, let's switch up. Let's talk about a little leadership.
Yeah.
What does being a leader mean to you?
So I think I think being a leader means sort of creating the conditions for others to succeed. So it's not about being the smartest person in the room. I'm living proof of that. Or having all the answers. To me, it's about listening, setting a clear direction, building trust. And I think like there's this whole servant leadership.
Servant
there
leadership.
We go. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I fumbled on the words there. But yeah, no, it's about like helping the people that you're leading, recognizing potential in people and really helping them grow into that.
You consider yourself a leader?
Yeah, I do. I do now, although I didn't always.
Now? Yeah, okay.
Right.
So,
yeah. No, early
good.
in my career, like I thought leadership was like about titles, having this impressive title, like who's in charge, who's at the top of the org chart. Over time I realized it's way more about the impact that you have on others, and also how you show up when times are tough or uncertain. Like
true.
I think that's really important.
Yeah. What is the most important trait a leader should have?
I think honesty, integrity, consistency, but I guess if I had to pick one, it's probably self-awareness.
That's good.
So, and I feel like without that, everything else, so like your communication, your decision-making, your empathy, all gets compromised. So a self-aware leader, like they really understand their strengths and their weaknesses, when to ask for help, and they know when to be the one speaking and leading, and when to kind of sit back and listen.
I like that.
Yeah, thanks.
I like that. How do you define success?
I think success is about creating meaningful impact without kind of losing who you are along the way. So like building something that lasts, whether that's a company, a team culture, or a relationship.
Yeah, I like that.
And doing that in a way that aligns with like your values and your authentic self. So professionally, like it's when people I've worked with, I run into 10 years later are, at the time sort of felt like they grew and they were heard and did their best work, but they look back on it 10 years later and they're like, hey, remember that time at Agencyport or at Back Bay Technologies that we worked on that thing? And it's like, people having fond memories of that, I think is like, that's a good sign. Personally, I guess the same thing's true, but it's like knowing you show up the right way, like I said, integrity, humility, purpose. I think about that with my family and friends too. Like if the people who are closest to me know that they were prioritized, they were supported, they felt loved, then I feel like I've done a good job. Like what matters, I've kept what matters most kind of at the center of all that.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. How do you give back, or do you give back?
Yeah. I like to think I give back a lot. My wife probably gets a lot of credit for this. She's trained me well, I guess. But I've volunteered a lot over the years. My wife and I we've served on several not-for-profit boards.
Oh, nice.
And we've always supported those with the not-for-profit tenets, time, treasure, and talent. And given a lot to that. But the one organization that's been the most impactful over the last 15 years of my life, it's called New England Disabled Sports. And we teach people with both physical and or cognitive challenges how to ski and snowboard.
Oh, that's cool.
It's been awesome. And there are other sports too. I participate in the winter, but so my kids, my wife and I, my kids are grown up now, but when they were doing this in high school, we volunteer coaching there like 25 to 30 days a winter. Oh, wow. And I've become, like in the course of this, become a professionally certified snowboard and ski instructor.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we're really into it.
Wow.
And I've just found like introducing that freedom of snowboarding or skiing, flying down the mountain to someone who like never imagined that they'd be able to do that. And their families too. Like sometimes we'll take a kid out, a kid or an adult in a sit ski. And, their family's skiing around with them. These are people that like, when they're not on the mountain, the kid's in a wheelchair all day. And they're just like bringing those experiences to people. And it's so much more than just skiing. Like they take that off the mountain and they're, anyway, it's brought more satisfaction to my life than I feel like I've gotten a lot more out of it than I've given. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's been pretty fun.
That's really cool. Aside from family, I like to say aside from family, because everybody's like, what do you do for fun? Everybody's like, well, I have kids and I do this. Like, we all have kids.
Yeah.
We all have stuff. I mean, some of your kids are growing different, but so what do you do for fun? Obviously, okay, actually, I'm going to ask you this. Do you like snowboarding more or skiing more? Are you skier or snowboarder?
That's a really good question. So I'm a lifelong skier.
Yep.
I actually picked up snowboarding. I did it way back in high school, but that was like when the snowboards looked like a big fat ski. They
totally.
The Burton Performer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
Are you a snowboarder too?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Okay. Flat tail, huge nose. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'm doing something really technical, I'm more comfortable on my skis.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm just out there free riding, I would much rather be on my snowboard. Like a powder day when I'm not coaching, I'm on the snowboard. So I obviously do the coaching a lot, but I also, do you know what backcountry skiing is?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, so you can do it with a snowboard too, a split board. So for your listeners who might not know, it's also called skinning, and you use these special bindings that allow you to ski uphill, and you can get to like terrain that's not serviced by lifts. So you can be out in the middle of nowhere. You could be at a ski resort, but go way off the trail.
That's
awesome. I said that.
But
then you get to the top of where you want to go. You lock your heels in, and it's like a regular alpine binding.
That's pretty cool.
Or there's a way, you do it with a snowboard. You kind of latch it together.
Oh, it's like split apart?
It's called a split board. Yeah.
Oh,
So the board comes apart,
Yeah.
and you use use it to ski up, and then you put it back together, and you're skiing or riding.
So it's
down
like cross country ski in a way. And I got you.
And there's this skinning comes from there's a synthetic. It's like actually a synthetic seal skin on the bottom. I mean, no seals have been killed in this sport, but I think they were in the old days. But so then you get up there and you're in a place where no one skis. You're like fresh tracks all the time.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
man.
That's really cool. And I got introduced to heli skiing a few years ago.
Oh, no kidding.
Have you ever done it?
No.
No. Well, my knees are still good. I plan to get a lot more of that. Because that's just.
I bet that's
really
epic. Yeah. Where do you go to do that?
So I did it out in British Columbia,
way
up at a place called the Gothic. It's in like the Bugaboo Mountain Range, way up there. It's like, unbelievable. Like it's stuff you see in a Warren Miller film. Wow. It's pretty awesome. So that is what I do in the winter. In the warmer months, I like biking, mainly mountain biking, some road biking. Although, like living around Boston, I hate biking in Boston traffic. It's just too dangerous.
Nuts. Yeah.
I'm getting back into running after some nagging injuries. So I did a couple marathons in my 20s, and now I'm like fighting my way back into half marathon shape. Like that would be a victory for me. And when I'm not doing like on a trail, I love boating. So either fishing or just relaxing. We have a place down on Cape Cod, not too far from here, and
that's awesome.
That's where you'll find me. And then this is really dorky, but the one other thing I like to spend time on is investing. So for 20 years or so, my wife and I have been investing a lot in real estate.
Oh, okay.
First actively, like I had a 6 family and I go down and fix toilets and collect rent. Now we're like much more on the passive side, but it's grown to the point where, the majority of our income's coming from investments, not from our day jobs. And, so given the importance of that on like our financial freedom, I totally nerd out usually like an hour or two every weekend. I'm also like, as you know from our industry, I'm kind of a data geek. Mm-hmm. So like I've set up these databases. I've got these Looker dashboards that I use for like, basically like looking at our portfolio and returns and stuff like that, comparing actuals to estimated.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So you built your own platform.
But it's like, that's like my favorite thing to do when I'm not skiing or something, like sit there with a cup of coffee on a Saturday morning and crunch my numbers. So totally dorky, but that like cool, really makes me happy.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. If you had unlimited time, what would you do?
I got a really long list. So obviously like everything we just talked about, I'd love to spend more time doing all that stuff. I would definitely want to work on my golf game. I've kind of like neglected that for the last 2 to 3 decades. And just, I think I could be a good golfer. I just never like practiced enough. So, I get out now 4 times a year and I can't even get mad at myself that I suck so badly. So that's one thing. And then the other big thing that I've always wanted to do is get my captain's license.
Oh yeah, nice.
So I'd
like to do that.
Pilot commercial vessels.
I would
run a fishing charter.
100%.
Yeah. So I kind of like somewhere I have this, one of my retirement jobs might be to like transport yachts back and forth between like New England and Florida and the Caribbean and stuff like that. So that's on my list. I don't know. I'd also, if I had all the time in the world, I'd probably get a part-time job at my favorite brewery.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know. That's a
What's
pretty
your
good
favorite
list.
brewery?
So it's a place called Treehouse.
I knew you were going to say that.
Okay.
Everybody loves Treehouse.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No,
Okay,
it's a great.
right.
I mean, it's one of the best beers there is. I mean, Treehouse is legit.
Yeah. So, and it's crazy. So there's one on Cape Cod now.
Oh, wow.
So I
okay.
used to have to drive like 2 hours west to get it. Now
Yep.
there's one on Cape Cod that's like kind of on the way to my house. So every weekend. And then your listeners don't know this, but so we're right in Fenway in Boston right now.
Yep.
And I live about a mile from here. Like literally have to walk by the Prudential Tower, and there's now a treehouse in the Prudential Center.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's dangerous. Like,
you know,
I'm out doing an errand. I'll just stop by and pick up a 4-pack, and they have it on draft. Like, I could become an alcoholic if I'm not careful. But yeah, it's.
They're starting to pop up everywhere.
Yeah.
They have awesome.
Yeah, I
awesome beers.
really do like that.
That's funny. I figured you'd say that because that is like one of the best there is.
Yeah.
What is your drink of choice then?
Well, I probably just foreshadowed this inadvertently, but yeah, definitely IPAs. And just to bring all the listeners up to speed, if you don't know what they don't know what an IPA is, I have a feeling you do, Reid. It's an India Pale Ale, and specifically, I like they call it any IPA. It's either, depending on who you ask, New England IPAs or Northeast IPAs.
Oh, I didn't know that was the thing.
Yeah,
okay.
Super like hazy. Like it almost looks like you're drinking a glass of orange juice than beer. Like nice and thick and orange. And they're just so tasty. And somehow these brewers are amazing. They from the hops like pull out this really fruity flavor. And and specifically from Treehouse, if you want to hone in on my actual favorite.
That's awesome. Yeah. Man. Well, hey, dude, thanks for doing this. This was
my
great.
Pleasure. Yeah, it was great.
Awesome.
Great to connect. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it was really good, dude. I appreciate your time, and you're doing cool stuff in the industry, and it sounds like you're going to continue to keep doing cool stuff. So if anybody sees you out there, buy you a New England IPA.
That's right.
Yeah. I didn't know that was a thing. A New England IPA. You're like West Coast.
Yeah,
New
it's very different than West Coast. The hop profile is really different. And I don't love the West Coast ones, but somehow I've kind of, your taste buds evolve. But I'm a craft beer snob now. So. All right. But thanks a lot, Reid.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah,
all right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.